Hello, I'm Daryl Wu, president of My Sister's House.
And I'm Angela Lai, board member of the organization My Sister's House. The purpose of this show is to help individuals in our community recognize aspects of healthy and unhealthy relationships, as well as raise the awareness of domestic violence in our community.
We are part of My Sister's House, a Sacramento-based nonprofit organization focused on serving the needs of Asian and Pacific Islander women and children impacted by domestic violence through a culturally appropriate and responsive safe haven and community services.
In a continuing effort to spread the word about domestic violence prevention, My Sister's House brings you this special program.
You are watching Healthy Relationships, brought to you by Kaiser Permanente. Today on Healthy Relationships, we'll describe signs of both healthy and unhealthy relationships among young women.
Think about your daughter, your sister, your cousin, niece, or granddaughter. How can you make sure they are in a healthy relationship? And what should you do if you find yourself or a loved one in an unhealthy relationship?
We know this is a tough subject to talk about, and it's especially tough in our Asian and Pacific Islander communities because of our cultures.
It is especially tough for young women in our Asian and Pacific Islander communities. For example, in this episode, we have a young woman, let's call her Kathy, who has a cousin that has been in an abusive relationship for more than 5 years and continues to be in this relationship today. Kathy shares her cousin's story.
So my cousin, she met this guy in high school. She's a smart girl. She gets really good grades in school, but she's always been the type of girl that really needs that guy. Like, I guess it's kind of like reassuring for her to have a boyfriend. So she met him in high school, and he drove her everywhere. He was kind of there for her, just the cool boyfriend that takes you out, He's Asian also, so that was a plus for the family, just when you're dating sometimes when you're dating within your race, it kind of reassures the family that it's kind of, you guys have similar backgrounds and similar, beliefs and stuff like that. They've been dating for a long time. It's been, I would say, 5, almost 6 years, and they're still dating now. She took him back after breaking up with him for a few months. She takes him back. In front of us, he was so nice. He just was always willing to help, always offering to, help us out with our cars and stuff, like telling us, oh, I can fix cars. I can do this and this. Just always offering a helping hand. But when we did take on his offers, she would tell us that he would complain about it later. And so that kind of stopped. We stopped asking him for help, or even little things like, hey, can you drop this off here or something? Because he made it seem like it was okay to ask him for favors, but then he would go back and tell her he didn't like it, And because we're close, we're the same age, kind of, we do a lot of double dating, triple dating, hang out with all of our other cousins. And every time we'd ask him, he would say, yeah, definitely, that sounds good. But then he'd go back and he'd tell her, that he doesn't want to hang out with us. We're so boring. And I don't know what it was. It's weird. He always felt inclined to talk about someone, like always putting someone down. And I kind of feel like it was him being not comfortable with himself, And well, when she first confessed about being with him, we tried to really be a good support system for her. I would, because we're the same age, I would always take her out. I would never hesitate to hang out with her and, drop whatever I was doing to go hang out with her. But the minute she started talking to him again, kind of letting him back into her life after the few months that they broke up, I think she felt a little guilty for kind of coming forward and now going back to him. And that's when she stopped coming around, because everybody would tell her the same thing, you know, leave him. Like, why are you giving him that chance again? It's stupid. It's not smart. Look at what he did to you. You still have the scars on your nose, you know, you still have all those bruises. Like, and she would tell us she knows, he's changed though. And because we kept, I guess because we kind of were being too brutally honest, it kind of pushed her away a little bit more, pushed him towards him more. She felt like the only person that understood her was him. So we had to kind of bite our tongue a lot of times. When she told us about how he broke her nose, I'm still surprised about how much into detail she got, but she still decided to get back with him. That's what's surprising to me. She told me they were driving in the car, and it started out as a small argument. I'm not even sure if it was anything important, but he lashed out and he just got mad, and he just swung his arm at her and broke her nose. She like screamed and yelped, and he drove her to the hospital. And I asked her how come, because she didn't confess about that until about a year later. So I asked her how come she kept it a secret. And she said, well, it's not that he meant to break her nose. It's just he didn't realize his strength. That's all, you know. After he broke her nose, the thing is, the big confession about how she wanted to leave him and stuff came later. But, I mean, I've told her several times that it wasn't a good relationship, because I have seen the bruises on her, and I have questioned it. And she says it's because he threw a lotion bottle at me, or it was more like throwing objects. So it didn't sound, to me, the way she was portraying it, it sounded like it was just a fight where people were throwing things, you know. It didn't sound like he was actually hitting her with any, you know, like abusing her, like with his hands. So she kind of trivialized it by saying like, oh, he threw a lotion bottle at me, or he threw this and that at me. But, you know, like, I know he's been abused by his dad. I've heard stories about that. He hates his stepdad. You know, there's no relationship there. He'll call his stepdad dad, but it's not that type of a relationship. And his mom kind of takes the stepdad's side. Whatever the stepdad says pretty much goes. So I know he's not happy with his stepdad. So he goes out a lot. I know that. And I know he kind of relies on his friends a lot. And when he met my cousin, it was just the two of them, you know, like the friends were out. So they relied on each other a lot. So I think a part of him does realize what he's doing is wrong, and he's not fully happy with his actions either. They just keep running back to each other. It's hard to tell someone to just leave a person, but I really think that she needs counseling. She needs someone else there, like, that she'll trust enough to tell her, you know, you're a better person than this. Because obviously we can tell her over and over again, but she just feels like we're telling her that just because we're family. But I think she needs counseling. I think that's the only way she can really get it set in her head that she doesn't need a guy there to make her happy, you know, and no one deserves to get treated that way. People like my cousin are brought up to feel as if they should serve their boyfriends, serve their husbands. Food should be ready for him. Everything should be taken care of, because he's the one that overall carries the weight. So the little things that he asks of you, you should take care of. And in the Vietnamese culture, when the elder people see that your boyfriend or your husband is gracious and, you know, he greets you, they get really attached to that. That's their kind of form of respect that they get from him, and that's why they kind of become attached to that. They become attached to him. So it's harder for her to feel as if she can just leave him and find someone else to replace him, because the family's already become attached. They're kind of in the mindset still that there's only one boyfriend. Once you bring that guy home, that's it. You know, there's no other guy. So that's why my cousin is this way. That's why she's still with him. She feels as if she can't date anyone else because the families, well, her mom and dad are too attached to him. They just feel like he's it for her.
When we come back, Dr. Maura Sharma, a psychologist who is an expert on domestic violence, shares signs of healthy and unhealthy relationships.
It can be a very confusing time if they don't know a lot about healthy relationships, unhealthy relationships, and what are some of the other signs to look at.
When healthy relationships continues.
Did you know more than 52% of all rape, sexual assault victims are females under the age of 25? A survey conducted on 32 colleges and universities found that 84% of the women raped knew their attacker, and 57% of those rapes happened on dates. Welcome back to Healthy Relationships. We just heard our special guest, a young woman, Kathy, who is concerned enough to tell us about her cousin's unhealthy relationship with her boyfriend.
While Kathy says her cousin continues to keep her abusive relationship with her boyfriend, many of you watching who are in the same position or know someone in the same situation can do something today.
I sat down with Dr. Maura Sharma, a psychologist with an expertise in domestic violence and currently works for Kaiser Permanente at the Outpatient Psychiatry Department in South Sacramento. Dr. Sharma, we just heard Kathy's story about her cousin. Can you tell us why so many young women continue to keep relationships that are not healthy?
Young people are really learning a lot about their own limits. What are my limits? Where do I end? Where do you start? And it can be a very confusing time if they don't know a lot about healthy relationships, unhealthy relationships, and what are some of the other signs to look at. Specifically, Kathy had mentioned in the API community that, you know, once you bring a guy into the household and into the family, it's it. I mean, that's it. We're assuming that this is going to be your life partner. So again, you know, then to take steps to contradict that, she may lose face, both from her parents, from her immediate family and extended family, from her community. There may be some sources of shame. It's also, people feel a lot of sense of guilt when they're in these relationships, feeling that they caused it. Kathy had indicated that her cousin at times felt like she may have caused it based on what he was saying to her. So you'll see a lot of those barriers, both, you know, in the outer environment, society, the family values, maybe even her sense of self. Again, many times young people don't really know, where do I begin, where do I end, where do you start when they're in a very close relationship where there's so much intense dynamics going on. So some common signs that a relationship may have some abusive dynamics have to do with some of the major forms of abuse. Those are physical, sexual, emotional, financial. So physical, obviously many people understand what that is. It could be getting in somebody's face and space, slapping, hitting, pushing, shoving, those types of behaviors. Sexual can be pressuring someone to have sex or be more intimate before they're really ready to in the relationship. Financial can be controlling all the financial assets, anything that has to do with payment, who decides who's going to pay for what, or whose paycheck goes to what expenses and so forth. And then emotional has a lot of behaviors that can occur in there. So some of the more common things that we'll see is people will be putting somebody else down, calling them names, making them feel like they're going crazy, guilt trips. If you don't do this, why aren't you doing what I say? You know, if you really loved me, you would do this. And then isolating, possessiveness. Kathy had mentioned that her cousin pulled back from hanging out with the family because her partner had kind of pressured her and made her feel uncomfortable with the family in that sense of telling her that they only call when they need something. They don't really value you. They don't really value you as a person. You're not a contributing person to that family. You know, other things that might be signs is if your friend has to arrange secretly to hang out with you or to hang out with the family, or if they're very concerned about what their partner might think, or if you notice that they're getting a lot of text messages or emails or phone calls about where are you, what are you doing, how come you're not here yet, or if you're all hanging out and all of a sudden your friend says, I gotta go and be with so-and-so. So all of those types of changes in behaviors, personality, mood, and just a lot of thought about what that partner is going to think about their actions, or trying to be very discreet when they're hanging out with you. Those are some very common signs that we'll see. So in terms of dynamics of people who engage in abuse, and as well as their background, what the research tells us is that there will be people who end up abusing their partners who have come from families where there's been no abuse. There are also a lot of research that also supports that if someone's witnessed abuse between their parental figures, there's a possibility that, if they're female, they have a greater likelihood of possibly experiencing intimate partner violence, dating violence in adolescence, in the college years, and then future in adulthood. And then the same thing with men, is that there's a slightly increased risk that they will perpetrate or engage in abusive dynamics, both in adolescence, college age, and then later on in adulthood. In terms of some of the common dynamics that occur, jealousy is something that you'll see early on in relationships, the possessiveness, I'll often hear young women say, well, he's always blowing up my phone, meaning texting, sending text after text after text, asking, what am I doing, where am I at, who am I with? Accusing that if the person is seen hugging somebody else. I mean, that came up in Kathy's story. She had said that her cousin was hugging someone else and he got really jealous and then was violent towards another person. Really having that sense of possessiveness of the partner can also occur early on in some of these younger relationships that you'll see. In a healthy relationship, you'll really see quite the opposite. You'll see a lot of respect for a person's opinions, their interests, how they spend their time, just a sense of trust between the two, honesty and communication, also being able to say, hey, I was wrong about this, I'm sorry for what I did, and then following it up with actions, meaning you don't do anything else to cross that other person's boundary in a disrespectful way. And there's really a shared sense of responsibility for how to deal with conflict in the relationship. It's not like, you must do this for us to be happy. It's like, okay, we disagree on this. How can we work it out? Is it that we do what you want this time, and then the next time we do what I want? And you really want a relationship where there's a lot of support and encouragement. There's even reinforcement for each person to have a little space so that they can go hang out with their friends or families or pursue their own interests and hobbies and so forth. Empathy is really key. If someone does not have the ability to put themselves in your shoes and really be responsive to whatever emotions you're going through, that's a red sign that empathy's not there. And really, you want any person that you're going to be dating to have a good sense of confidence and to allow you to have your own space to be yourself as well.
So, what steps can someone like Kathy's cousin do to get out of this unhealthy relationship?
So, some steps someone in Kathy's cousin situation might be able to take to get out, or just even really, the main goal is to prioritize safety, and so it may lead to getting out of the relationship. But part of being safe is talking to the people that she feels most supported by, which I think she's very fortunate to have Kathy in her life, and it sounds like Kathy's immediate family has also been pretty supportive. So I think as a whole, parents need to become much more involved in their children's lives. It's a hard age because you also want to reinforce them getting a little bit more independent, but at the same time, it's really educating them about what are healthy dynamics in the relationship. There's a lot of information on the web right now. My sister's house has lots of information about what are the dynamics. They need to also make it their business to basically say, I saw this show and they were talking about dynamics of abuse in young relationships, and I hadn't realized how high it was. And one of the things that they encouraged was talking to your children. And so I want to let you know that I'm concerned for your safety. And yeah, of course, you know, I want to see you get married, settle down, find that life partner that you're going to have a family with or be happy with and be protected with. But we also need to talk about what are the things that make that relationship okay, what are the things that don't make that relationship okay. If you're ever worried about causing shame or making me angry, I want you to risk it. I want you to come and talk to me so I can help you, because that's what my job is to help you, and then we'll figure it out together.
81% of all on-campus rapes go unreported. More than half of all stalking victims are between the ages of 19 and 29 years old. 13% of college women have been stalked. While in college, 50 to 75% of women are sexually harassed. 20 to 30% of college women report being harassed by a professor. Intimate partner violence accounts for half of 911 calls, and battered women account for 15 to 30% of emergency room visits. More of Healthy Relationships when we return.
Nếu mấy chị mấy em có chuyện như em họ của tôi, xin hãy gọi My Sister's House. Đừng có lo, ở đây có người Việt có thể giúp đỡ. Xin hãy gọi bên này。
如果你或者你所關心嘅人身處喺一個唔健康嘅家庭關係，並需要幫助嘅話，請打我哋嘅24小時多國語言熱線916-428-3271。Thank you for joining us today on Healthy Relationships. We hope that this show has encouraged you to evaluate the relationships in your life. Remember, if you or a loved one is ever in need of help from an unhealthy relationship, you can contact the Multilingual 24-hour helpline at 916-428-3271. For more information on My Sister's House, please visit our website at www.my-sisters-house.org.
We'd especially like to thank today's guests, Kathy and Dr. Sharma. We'd also like to give a big thanks to Kaiser Permanente for making this episode possible. Thank you, Kaiser Permanente.
That's all for today's episode of Healthy Relationships. On behalf of My Sister's House, thank you for watching.